This walk-up song right here with the play ball. The great Faiz Shakir. Give a round of applause.
Give me a baseball bat. I'm ready to hit.
If the Chicago Cubs, is Chicago Cubs your team, Faiz?
I would say the Red Sox still. It kind of got in my blood when I was up there.
Oh,
Yeah, I was a Red Sox fan up in college, and it's kind of stuck with me.
oh my goodness, man! You being a Sox fan because of that Harvard.
Andrew, once you walk into Fenway Park, I promise you, even you, whatever concerns you have with the Red Sox, when you walk into that park and you ever played on that field, I guarantee you it's stick in your blood.
Well, considering I was on Commonwealth Avenue, right next to that stadium for 4 years, and thankfully I was there the year after the 2004 debacle for us here in Yankees land. But
Yes.
the euphoria of epic proportions for you in Red Sox land. What made you choose the Sox? Was it before Harvard or was it during Harvard?
It was once you get into Boston, you hear talk radio, you see the culture of a city that really loves sports, which coming up in the South, it wasn't like in your blood in that way. But you go to New York, probably New York, Boston, that same way. The culture just sticks with you, and I just it was infectious. I was like, yeah, I'm into this. This is great.
So the Marlins in 1990.
I actually, to your point of the Cubs, that's how I learned the game of baseball. I got into game of baseball because I would come home after school every day and watch WGN, Harry Carey and Steve Stone. They broadcast some games, and it was on the day. It was at daytime games because they didn't have lights at Wrigley Field back in the day, and that's how I learned the game of baseball. I was listening to them because I was a son of immigrant parents who didn't know anything about baseball. So that part of me, still really respects and appreciates what the Chicago Cubs brought.
Indeed, to the point where you're just the latest Red Sox friend that I know, so I have to accept.
Red Sox Nation. That's right.
So, good sir, with how More Perfect Union has done a major great thing, establishing itself what you and Nico, have built in such like a short period of time to really be a viable place for not just progressive news, but really making sure that you're like establishing yourself at the level of like when you were at Think Progress of let's like having this news circle, and when he was at Huffington Post of really being able to be a whole force in the news circle for you. What was that point where after everything in terms of 2020, did you say in that period where you said, you know what, I really want to have at least a sight to be in this whole media world with it?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that I had been in advocacy journalism before with Think Progress, but what happened in 2020 is obviously I had the opportunity and the honor of traveling around the country with Bernie Sanders and seeing all the millions of people that would, not only support him, but engage with him at town halls and hear their stories. And that we had a media critique during that campaign, that people, his critique, I shared that critique, which is, the plight of the working people of America is not adequately covered or represented in media, who often live in an elite bubble and don't often feel the same pains and struggles of working people. And it's one thing to have the critique. And I was like, those of us who have the critique, why don't we try doing something about it? And I would often hear people say, oh, if you do this coverage, I don't know, it wouldn't get a lot of attention. It isn't flashy, interesting, or gossipy. And I was like, you know what, we're gonna give it a shot and let's see if there's audience that's interested in it, because my sense was we're talking about the lives of hundreds of millions of people, the vast majority of Americans who are working people. They know these issues. They feel like this not currently represented, working at an Amazon warehouse, working as a Walmart employee, working as a Dollar General employee. They know what their lives are like, working as port truck drivers, right? And so like let's capture what their lives are like. Let's break class bubbles. Right, we live in a society that we often have, people not only separated by income and wealth, income disparities, but it's becoming more that there's bubbles where the elites don't even know what the lives of working people are like. Yeah. And so what the goal of More Perfect Union was to break the class bubble and let people experience. See, let me introduce you. Here's the lives of America, and tell their stories. And guess what? It turns out that lots and lots of people are actually interested in that kind of coverage.
And just the timing of it all has just been almost as ideal and perfect as possible, considering not only all of the labor uprisings that were generating its major attention, but to have obviously what happened in Staten Island when Amazon reached its culmination and be there. And once again, there was no other outlet, and I'm not saying this because you're a quality colleague, friend, and whatnot, Baz, but there was no other outlet that was really on the pulse of these full labor uprisings on these really dominant, powerful companies like Amazon, and as we're seeing with Starbucks with it, and hopefully soon in a major way with Walmart in that level, like you guys were.
I
So
appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, we have a theory of change of how do workers organize. So and I think from my end, I've always believed that you have to empower grassroots actors and that people take inspiration from each other. There's a different theory of thought, right? Which is that, powerful institutions have to lay out a strategic plan and tell people what to do. I've always believed you give people the tools and the power and the inspiration and the know-how, they'll go do it. And so we started covering the Amazon workers because I saw people trying to take matters in their own hand and take on a corporate behemoth down in Bessemer, Alabama. And I'll share one story with you, Andrew. Like when we started covering that, Chris Small saw some of that coverage, and Chris Smalls got in a car. He drove from Staten Island down to Bessemer. It's when we first engaged with him, and he saw some of the organizing that was going on with his own eyes. He saw our coverage. He watched it. He goes, but he says, I got ways to improve on this. I see what you're doing down here in Bessemer. I'm coming back up to Staten Island. And he says, will you please make sure you cover what we're doing? I was like, of course we're going to do that. And I saw somebody who, if you look at what Bessemer did, it inspired a nation. It inspired Starbucks workers, it inspired Chris Smalls, it inspired, you just saw some Apple store employees starting to organize in Atlanta, Georgia. They explicitly said that they were inspired because of what happened in Bessemer. That's how people take inspiration from each other. Working class people feeling heard, feeling respected, and saying, I can do that too. That's what we've been about.
And this happened in a major way because on Sunday, once again, you are having at least a bond with those great Amazon union workers out there, as well as with Senator Bernie Sanders being there on Sunday with that. Can you just talk about in regards to how that's going to be on Sunday after a good bond that they've already had over the past few weeks?
Yeah, I've been traveling. I'll be traveling up with Senator Sanders to New York first in the morning. We'll be hitting the Amazon Labor Warehouse where Chris Smalls has invited Senator Sanders to attend. He'll be meeting with some of the lead organizers of LDJ5, where they'll be voting next week. So he'll talk to them and then he'll address the public. So those of you out in New York area want to come by and listen to Senator Sanders, he'll be speaking for a few minutes, probably around 11 a.m. On Sunday morning. And then from there, we'll get on a plane and head to Richmond, Virginia, where we'll gather with Starbucks workers who are holding a Unity Fest out there. He'll be both meeting with Starbucks workers who invited him to come to that event. So he'll talk to them privately, and then he'll go address the crowd at around 5 or 6 p.m. In Virginia. So he's got an action-packed day, but you can see what's in his bones. This is Bernie Sanders' life for 40 years, but this is somebody who really cares about and thinks about being an organizer-in-chief. Had he been president of the United States, this is the way he would have been acting. He wants to get out there and show that a nation should get behind these courageous workers, give them support, let them know what you're doing is powerful. And to just applaud them and say, hey, we need more like this. And so I wish there were more politicians, quite frankly, who'd see what Bernie Sanders is doing and say, I want to mimic that. I want to copy that. I want to follow that path. Mm-hmm. Knock on wood, we'll do that someday.
Indeed, man. And at least I think from the likes of course, with Cori Bush or Jamal Bowman or Rashida Tlaib, or in terms of my college friend, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, since we go all the way back.
She'll be there too, by the way, on Staten Island. We'll see Congressman Ocasio-Cortez will be in those meetings as well.
And so people can understand it's not no beef or whatnot, as people try to say and try to make it seem like it is or whatever, and that every progressive politician has to do every single thing and be lockstep with things. But we know how that can be in its own narrative not helpful with it. And part of that is something where, as we have been real critics in regards to, as I label it, centrist media, centrist corporate media, but how I label it centrist because of how they want to still both sides everything.
Right.
And one particular thing is when seeing Chris Smalls make the rounds that he's made for media wise, seeing when Casey Hunt interviewed him at CNN and how she tried to put all the movement and try to say, are Democrats the party of the working class? And like pretend once again that, oh, there's not another little big party that exists that unfortunately, editorial speaking, is part of half the government here.
Yeah,
And
I mean, like on the one hand, we can fight and reform and push for the Democratic Party to stand up for working people and labor as it should. It is our roots, and we should be kind of stronger on that score, no doubt about it. We also, as you're mentioning, you can't give a pass to Republicans. Like, well, why isn't there a single Republican standing up with Amazon workers? Why isn't there a single Republican standing up with Starbucks workers? Yes, we've had dozens and dozens of Democrats stand up with Starbucks workers. You have these Starbucks workers across the country, coast to coast, organizing stores, even in places like Florida and in the South and Tennessee. And have you heard a single Republican come forward and say, I stand with these courageous workers who are just trying to fight for basic dignity on the job? No, you haven't. Not one. It's crazy, right? That tells you that this Republican Party that wants to now talk about, oh, we got working class roots and we're going to speak to working class people. Yeah, are you going to stand with them in their fight? No, you're not. You're not. I mean, it's very revealing.
and it's the erasure of how they're still part of this government and still such an
Yeah.
integral force with it that it's really problematic. And when you see that level of coverage continue, we had literally a whole entire pandemic bill in regards to at least when we at the beginning of this year in terms of getting at least 50 Democrats in there where they didn't want to vote for it like at all. It barely any for even if it was a central infrastructure bill, but most of them didn't want to vote for that. It's
Right.
it's the absolving of a really party that's become so extremist, but yet still wanting to basically false equivocate and try to make it seem, oh, there's struggles for the Democrats with that when we have one major party being so anti-fact, so anti-working class that it's really still persistent.
Yeah, and quite frankly, corporate cap. I mean, you took a look at the corporate capture of the Republican Party. That means that, the truth is because of how much corporations have owned now the Republican Party through donations and also the policy agenda, the things that often likely are able to get through Congress are the ones in which a handful of corporate Democrats might agree with the corporate Republican Party. That ends up becoming the majority. That's really the fundamental problem. Imagine why aren't there more working class Republicans out there? They want to claim that they're fight for working. If there were more working class Republicans, if even just a handful, you would pass a Build Back Better agenda. You would pass a forced stimulus check. You would pass a child tax credit. You would expand Medicare. Because it would only take a handful. You have 95% plus of Democrats, but the problem is that the corporate capture Republican Party means that you have all those votes plus, and then a handful of corporate Democrats who then go along with it. That's the majority.
Few more questions to ask you, good sir, because we have to make sure, because being the quality father that you are, to be able to pick up your whole daughters up. By the way, are they playing baseball, softball, like your kids?
Oh man, those glory days, they passed me by. I'm too old for that. Now I'm into coaching my kids and helping them develop and they'll see where they go.
Is Sarah getting into coaching yourself? You want to what? Did you get into coaching? Or?
Yeah, my wife, my better half, she's like great at right now she's like off traveling and doing something. That's why I'm single parenting right now. She's at an antitrust conference in Chicago,
All right.
but she's been teaching them some stuff around gymnastics and yoga, and that's where that's where they're actually more excited to be right now.
We got the next Simone Biles, Sunny Lee, in the Shakir household with it, good sir. Let me ask you one final question with this, because mentioning in regards to the media angle, like, do you feel that a lot of, say, progressive politicians, still may think about wanting to rely on centrist media when, in terms of interviews, where it is something where they still want to ask these ridiculous gotcha questions that are not fully informing people, particularly any of the Sunday shows and like Lord knows Chris Wallace going to CNN Plus only for CNN Plus to no longer exist with it. Like, do you feel though that with more viable options coming forward in the online media, more non-crazies, but those that really are having helpful quality discussions to push the progressive policies at least? Like, do you feel you wish you saw that more from anyone across the board?
I just feel like still to this day, given, I say this obviously from my perspective of leading more perfect union, I see the reach that we're having on Facebook and on Twitter, and our YouTube page is growing a fair amount. The I see the Amazon videos, the Starbucks videos are very resonant with people. So even if you weren't in the fight for economic justice, even if you weren't aligned on the fight for values that I care deeply about, and that's why we cover these things. And you are only selfishly thinking about traffic and views and audience. I'm telling you that audience is that people want to see and hear this content. And it is crazy to me that it takes Chris Smalls winning that election to get coverage. If you go back and look at Chris Smalls getting any media airtime before he won that election, you would be hard to come by. Obviously, he did. Amazon Labor Union wins the election. Now he's on a lot of different shows, and that's good. But that's not really the kind of test and the barometer of whether the media is doing an appropriate job. Why wasn't he giving as much coverage on the front end? Right. And even now, you look at all these Starbucks workers. Have you seen one on a television set near you? I mean, if you weren't online looking at some of our content, have you seen one? It's amazing. You've had 200 plus stores. It's a nationwide movement. It is a huge, big deal. And yet to this day, the CEO, Howard Schultz, is far more likely to be on a TV set than the workers. And there's a broken problem there because from my perspective, what the media is then missing is literally the story of the lives of people who are struggling, who have real interesting and compelling things to share. And yet it's interesting to dissect how broken the system is. The media ends up having better connections through PR agencies with executives. So they get the story, oftentimes the story from the elite class, and are not checking themselves by saying, should I go and talk to people who are the workers at this place to get a different perspective? And oftentimes they're not doing it. And it's sad because that content I do think would be very resonant. If you put me in charge of CNN Plus, there's a way to do this in a way that actually people would dial in and watch and be interested in.
And that's the thing that's baffling because they're not getting the ratings. It's like you're doing this, but you're not getting the numbers at the same time.
Tell you something.
It's baffling. Real quick, man, because India Walton is how I really was like, and then I realized, oh shoot, this is you that had it. When the coverage of her with that and how that was, and I'm saying this now, if Nina Turner wins this primary against Shontel Brown, it wouldn't surprise me, just as we saw with Byron Brown, to see the centrists once again, when they say, oh, coalesce around the primary winner, but yet when it comes to us winning primaries or whatnot, that they won't want to coalesce and run third party. Do you think you would see that happen, just like how they did India Walton, if Nina Turner was able, to get that win?
Even when they get into office, forget about the campaign. Look at the last cycle when AOC won and Rashida won and Ilhan won. It wasn't sufficient. They still came after them with millions and millions of dollars, corporate funded candidates in primaries to try to take them out. And they all got crushed, but they didn't stop from trying. They'll keep going. So yes, as progressives who are trying to fight for people who don't have power, the people who have power have so much at their disposal and will continue to assault and beat to reclaim it, to get their territory back. That is what the fight is over. Who has power and who doesn't have power? And those of us who are fighting to empower working class people, we are always fighting uphill because we don't have the quote unquote establishment of power, whether it's in the media, whether it's in politics, whether you look at it, you don't have power. And so you're always fighting uphill. And that's why you have to remind yourself that the base of our support is always people. It has to be populist. It has to be thinking of where and how can we get people engaged in this. And that's been the cause of my life. It's like trying to figure out, both whether it's reporting, whether it's politicians, whether it's advocacy. How do we get people to be a powerful force for change?
Well, all I can say is that it is the opposite of what nearest handing stands for with that. For I had to throw that in there fast for sure. With it, make sure you watch this later today and try to say freaks to anybody with that all the way. Good sir, the great fashion here. Let's let it get out. I appreciate you.